Welcome to Monarchist Minute, Royalist news and discussion out of the good old US of A. I am Charles York. Here with me tonight are Victor Smith, Aidan Halberg, and Dante Marrero, two of our rarer hosts. So we have,
Marino.
if you're guys are going to criticize me for not being Italian, then that's on you. Anyways, we have three main topics tonight. Okay. The first of which are Roe v. Wade updates from last week, because this is a thing. The news keeps updating. It's a funny thing like that. We have some news coming out of merry old England with Prince Charles. And then we have BLM funds buying a mansion. So our three main subpoints for the Roe v. Wade updates are a stolen tabernacle and how the hosts have now gone missing, unfortunately. Pro-abortionists claiming responsibility for an attack on a pro-life center in Wisconsin. And it appears as if earlier this week, the court is actually holding firm. So with that, we'll jump into our first topic and subtopic, which is the stolen tabernacle. And I will let Victor give us the overview of that, and then we can get into the discussion.
The Tabernacle at St. Bartholomew's Catholic Church in Katy, Texas, located just outside of Houston, was stolen after Mass on Sunday, and it was found outside of a Burger King of all places, and it was found with it being opened and the hosts gone missing. Now, the hosts are consecrated, which means that those pieces of unleavened bread are truly the body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. The tabernacle has been returned to the parish. No word as of yet on who did it.
Yeah.
Unlike in our second story in Wisconsin, where a group called Jane's Revenge claimed responsibility for the defacing of the pro-life pregnancy center in the state of Wisconsin. Ironic, because Jane Doe is Norma McCovey, who became a pro-life activist after Roe v. Wade was decided.
Well, we'll get to that when we get to that. Yeah, we obviously don't know who did this yet, and that is somewhat unfortunate. But the two main things, at least for me, is that even if they find out who did this, they're probably not going to be charged with anything more than breaking and entry and stealing and vandalism or some other minor charge and theft of property and whatnot. Because the courts in this country are officially subscribed to the whole separation of church and state line, which means they're godless. And the second thing is that there's some people who probably are wondering why we care so much about this. And as Victor already said, the Catholic Church holds to the truth that consecrated hosts are indeed the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. And this is evident in the Mass, and you mentioned it was stolen after Mass. Like, do you mean immediately after Mass, or do you mean like?
So I described a sip of water. I believe it was on Sunday night.
All right. So yeah, I mean, the Mass itself makes this abundantly clear, and it is. I don't know how to describe this exactly, but what's happening on the altar is, well, in a sense, it's worldly, I guess, because it's Christ coming down on the altars, because God's told us to do that. He told us to, as often as ye shall do these things, do them in remembrance of me. So the thought that people would take Christ and steal him and desecrate him is absolutely terrible. Why he does this, why he allows this to happen, I don't know. But then again, he allowed himself to be hung up on a tree for our sake. So there you go. And I know of at least one former Satanist who converted because he was beating the host that he stolen on the seat of his car, and it started bleeding. Uh, so obviously that kind of forced him to confront reality, I think. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's something that we shouldn't just be, I guess, angry at because pure anger does nothing. Like in a situation like this, but it should motivate us, I think, to offer prayers in reparation for the blasphemies and sacrileges that have been committed against the Holy Eucharist, not just now, but in all throughout all time, because there certainly have been a lot of instances like that. Yeah, anyone, Aiden or Dante or
Oh, you didn't leave me. You didn't leave me with much room there to clarify and tell the issue. But yes, there's
oh,
certainly a lot going on here. Like my illustrious friend here has said, what was stolen was nothing less than the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ our Lord, in the form of bread, stolen from a church. And while it's a good thing that we recovered the tabernacle, the gold is far less precious than what was within.
and I think that's I guess one of the mystery. Well, not I don't know if it's officially a mystery, but one of the mysteries. I mean, we as a religion, we obviously there's always been an emphasis on making sure that the finest materials we have are used. So you don't just take a plastic cup and use that as the chalice, and you don't just get a plastic bowl and use that as a ciborium. We always use gold, and if or lesser materials only if that's what's available. Gold and silver are always preferred, and gold specifically. Um, and the thing is that as precious as that gold is in a strictly material sense, it still doesn't compare to what Christ deserves. And this is what it's just what we have. I mean, no, I mean, but how can you get something that's worthy to house the divine our Lord Jesus Christ, um given that he was he's outside of time. He's not, I mean, in this sense, everything that we have material obviously was created at some point and will eventually pass again into dust, but obviously with God that isn't the case. um and I think that in that sense, obviously because this happened right after the Roe v. Wade thing, the people who did this, they obviously understood that. I mean, whether or not it's actual Satanists who are going to just desecrate the host and
And just to
repulsive.
clarify, for everyone, sorry for cutting you off. Just to clarify for everyone, we're talking about Dobbs v. Jackson here. I know that Charles has referred to it as Roe v. Wade, but I wanted to just clarify for everyone. No, we're literally not talking about the case from 1973. We're talking about Dobbs v. Jackson, not Roe v. Wade. Sorry, continue.
Oh well, and I think everyone's just branding this under the Roe v. Wade discussion because reasons. But anyways, um, yeah, no, I mean, either these people are outright Satanists, which is just terrible, or they at least, or at the very least, they know what or at least they know what we know, or they know what we hold to be true. Um, but either way, whether or not they're just doing this to get our goat, or they're actual Satanists just using this as an excuse, um, it's still the most heinous crime I can think of, and it's weird to think, who was that? There was a man in the Bible, one I think it was on the high priest servants who struck Christ, um, while he was being carried away, and it's weird to think that that's still something that can happen, 2,000 years later.
Well, I will say this in regards to the situation. you were right in that we need to pray for the people who did this, not just for the conversions of their hearts and souls, but although of course for those, but also just in general, people like that need prayers. And I will say, I find it so distressing that in a nation such as ours, which professes itself to exist as a beacon of religious liberty, that such obvious hate crimes can still occur directed against a certain religion. You'll notice it's always been directed as towards a certain religion. The weekend before this happened, we were hearing some chatter about how Catholic masses were going to be disrupted that weekend. We heard nothing about if they were going to start disrupting Baptist services or Presbyterian ones, and yet certain Protestant communities are equally as, if not more, conservative than the average Catholic community. In fact, I'm reasonably certain that as a demographic, Catholics are about 50-50 split on the abortion issue, which
Yeah, I
that
mean,
isn't to justify those 50% of Catholics who say that abortion is acceptable. But just because the church institutionally is against it doesn't mean that the people that you're disrupting are.
I mean, I think
And
that's more.
I just find that absolutely distressing.
And I think that there was a group called Ruth Sent Us, obviously referring to the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that said that claimed that they were going to burn hosts in retaliation for the Catholic sex abuse stuff.
I find it the height of irony that they take the name of Ruth, who, biblically speaking, was the exemplar of a perfect wife, and they corrupt that name in the name of feminism.
Well, they didn't name it after Ruth, the biblical character. They named it after Ruth, the Supreme
Bader
Court.
Ginsburg
I'm
one.
aware. I'm merely pointing out the irony.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is sort of weird now that I think about it. But I mean, I'm not quite sure what to think, because obviously, part of me thinks the reason why us Catholics are getting the worst of it is obviously because we're the people who hold to the truth, and so obviously the devil's going to hate us more, or the devil is trying to get people but so I mean, I think that there's because a lot of these people, I'm sure, are just atheists who are trying to do a haha, um we're making you mad sort of thing. But there has to be some sort of divine, or not divine, some sort of satanic influence, the opposite of divine, some sort of satanic.
Preternatural?
Huh?
Preternatural?
Oh yeah, I think that's the term, preternatural influence here, because it's just these are people. I mean, most I don't think I've ever run across in any of the abortion debates I've ever had an unironic Satanist, but I think a lot of these people are atheists who are like, oh, it's I wish my mom had aborted me, sort of nonsense. But there has to be something here, because at the very least they know enough that they're targeting the central point of our religion, the reason we all go to mass every Sunday, the reason. I mean, they're targeting the sacrament, to which is most commonly associated when people hear the word sacrament. Um, they're that's what they're targeting as an institution. They're not making a vague threat that we're just going to burn down all your parishes. They're not making that vague threat. They're specifically going after Christ. I mean, there has to be something there, because the population. It's so weird, because you have a lot of Catholics who deny uh, who deny the basic truth that what is at Mass is indeed the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ, and you have these people who, at the very least, they understand the Catholic dogma, even if they're out to actively desecrate the host. So there's something even more. There's another layer of tragedy there for you.
Yep. The number of Catholics who think it's just a symbol, and then the atheists who come in to burn it knowing it's not. There is some palpable. I think that the title of this episode should probably be about irony, because there's certainly a lot of that going around today.
Yeah. Dante, you've been awfully quiet. Do you wanna say something?
I feel like if I did talk, I would end up saying something which would have to be removed just out of sheer anger at the situation. It greatly distresses me with the sort of identity of American Catholics who, well, now that I just said that, now to think about it, who will put being American before being Catholic, and since America was founded on this idea of religious tolerance and freedom and non-sectarianism and yada 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 whatever, then just, so weak of faith and yuck.
Yeah. Well, that whole and the whole religious founding of America, and I know this would probably be better saved for its own topic in some future episode, but America and its origins are specifically anti-Catholic, and it's weird to think because as Catholics we are supposed to love our country, but love means to will the good of the other. So that means loving our country despite the fact that its foundation hates us. I mean, the fact that America was founded basically as a Protestant country, and the fact that we were the target of all these persecutions, like the Know Nothing riots, that actually got brought up recently because of the what do you call it? The people threatening to interrupt Catholic masses.
The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. Oh, not the Handmaid's Tale, but no, I mean, I guess the Handmaid's Tale. The outfits they wear are supposed to look. I think they're supposed to look like nuns or something. I don't know what they were going for.
Really? I always got the
very
vibe that they
terrible
were going
depiction
for
of a
pilgrim
nun.
women.
That's what it's supposed to look like.
I don't know. I kind of thought that, but now I think about it, might also be the Puritan. I don't know, but I've never known a nun to wear
Yeah,
red. I've never known a
I
Puritan
really
to
think
wear
it's
red.
supposed to be. I really think it's supposed to be based off of Puritan outfits, because I don't know of any nuns that wear red, for example.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but Puritans all wear black and gray. They're very dull. But anyways, but we're here and
Yeah, but if
they don't exist
you're going
anymore.
for symbolism of if you're going for symbolism, especially if you're trying to symbolize passion of some sort, you're going to use red.
Well, yeah. At any rate, I think I completely lost my point. But oh yeah, there we go. America and its foundations and everything that it is institutionally has always been anti-Catholic, and I think, and even to the point where it's gotten to the point where people are like, oh, separation of church and state, it's fine, I guess, but it's like it's. I mean, it's not. I mean, the Americanist heresy has always been so prevalent with us from the beginning, and most people don't even, and most American Catholics in America don't know it. I mean, I used to identify myself as an American Catholic, even though tangentially I always put and this is a weird thing with the English language because the adjective or qualifier goes before the actual important thing, right? Right. So it's like, big bus or something, or small plane or whatever, right? The adjective goes before the noun, which in this case, American is a adjective, obviously. But really, I'm afraid we have as a population taken that all too literally, and we're putting being an American, as Dante said, before being a Catholic. When to be a true American, I think, is to be a Catholic, because even though America's nature is anti-Catholic, to be a true American would be to seek the good of America, and so that means converting America's nature. And right now, what we have is an example of America's nature at its worst, and despite it all, we need to love this country to change its nature to be that of a Catholic nature that would never tolerate this sort of, sacrilege. Yeah. I like how I get off this high horse and I conclude it with, so, Yeah.
Well, I think in a legalistic sense, I'm not sure if it would meet the standard of a hate crime, but I don't know. I'm not an attorney.
No, because well, I'm not an attorney either, but I don't think it meets the standard of a hate crime, because the court is never going to acknowledge that something that what was stolen was Christ under the veil of bread and wine. Well, just the under the veil of bread, because obviously they don't. But anyways, um, they're not going to acknowledge that, because to acknowledge that would be to acknowledge the Catholic religion as being true, because this is what the Catholic faith holds, because it is true. And so any such ruling like that would just it would just declare Catholicism the state religion, which would be very agreeable, but it's not going to happen. But because this is another thing, and I really think I probably should have brought this up with the whole Constitution's yea or nay thing, is that when you have a constitution like ours, the Constitution is supposed to be the supreme law of the land. And so even if the Constitution is factually wrong, and that doesn't matter from a judicial sense, because in the judicial sense, the judges are supposed to uphold the Constitution. So sometimes that means they have to rule against reality. If for whatever reason, a bunch of people passed an amendment to the Constitution that said, we declare that the sky is green and anyone who says otherwise will be immediately shot, that regardless of the truth, whether or not the sky is green, the judge, if he doesn't want to violate his oath, which would be, I think, invalid, especially in that circumstance, but whatever, is going to have to sentence someone to death for claiming the sky is blue. I mean, yeah.
You see, you could get around that by saying that the sky is a very blue tinted shade of green, but
It's illogical to even comprehend that amendment. Sorry.
Well, no. But I mean, that's the thing. We do live in that world. We do live in that world where governments across the world are denying a truth far more important than that. I mean, the sky being blue. I mean, that's reality. But I mean, you thinking the sky is blue or green isn't relevant to your salvation. I mean, you could deny 1 + 1 = 2. You'd be an idiot. But that doesn't mean that or at least not a very smart person, but you that doesn't affect your salvation. But denying that Catholicism is the true religion, and denying that the sacraments are what they are, and denying everything like that, that's far more important as to whether or not the sky is green. That's far more important than that. So
From a Catholic perspective, yes.
well, yeah, from a Catholic perspective, but that qualify there, because we believe that the Catholic religion is the true religion, and so denying that
We as
on the
individuals,
legalistic
not we as the organization. That is
as
to say.
individuals, not the we had to make that qualifier, which kind of subverts my point.
I will remind you, we're not a Catholic podcast, Charles.
Well, yes, but when you got 4 people there, who's going to notice the one person?
as much as I would love for this to be a entirely Catholic movement, sadly, as you have said multiple times, America as a nation is not founded upon Catholicism and is in fact founded against it.
Yeah. So,
And another
Although,
point of irony.
to be fair, it's also founded against the idea of a monarchy.
yeah.
That too.
The ironic part is we rebelled against a monarchy that was only, if you really want to call it that, a monarchy that is really only 100 years old, because the previous one got deposed illegally. But that's a topic for another time.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're good. Oh no, you're gonna make Charles go on the Jacobite rant again.
In 1688.
No, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We got my obligatory Charles is a Jacobite thing out there. We're good. We're good for this episode. I'll be kind to you all.
We mentioned it. We met the
Yeah. We met the
Tweet-
Lord have
requirement.
mercy.
This is
Quota.
officially an episode of Monarchist Minute. We met the requirement. It will go on the podcast. Anyways, actually, I don't think I mentioned that last time. Oh shoot, I have
No,
to go
you
back
did
into.
not. No, we did not.
Well,
Lord
unfortunately,
have
technical
mercy.
difficulties will be deleted. No, I'm joking. But anyways,
This is going on the blooper reel if you remember to put it in.
yeah, if I remember to put it in. So
it's,
yeah, do we have any I guess what was just to wrap up and not waffle on too much. To deny what was stolen is the body and blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. Is to deny reality, and for the government to not treat this with the severity that it deserves is just a reflection on how morally corrupt the system is, even if it wasn't intentionally designed to be so in this instance. I'm sure the founding fathers wouldn't have appreciated devil worshippers, but
You say
yeah,
that, but
that's
so
what I
many
have
of
to
them
say.
were Freemasons.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. I like to give them the benefit of the doubt.
I jest, of course.
Yeah. We go on my anti-Freemason rant sometime later. That's another thing that makes this a Monarchist Minute episode. Charles stating he does not like Freemasons. I don't like Freemasons. Okay, we met two of the qualifications. Anyways, so yeah, I guess those are my final thoughts on this
You
first
can check
sub
that off your
bullet.
bingo cards.
We can
Right.
check it. And a long audio pause. We can also check off on the audio cards. And we'll let you know if you can get a mini bingo by Craig interrupting and deciding to die halfway through. So, yeah, anyways, those are my final thoughts on this first subtopic. So I'll let everyone else state their thoughts before we move on to the next one.
My thought, and I'm going to keep this as brief as possible because I think we beat this to death. My thought on this is what a tragedy that our Lord had to suffer this past week. That is my only thought on this particular issue. Aiden.
I mean, in this past week, certainly the Lord has suffered. I would argue that he suffered more on Good Friday, but certainly had suffered quite a bit. Obviously, what happened is the highest form of sacrilege one can commit against the Catholic Church, and to steal from us for this explicit purpose is obviously a religiously motivated hate crime. To the people who did this, I will be praying for you. To the people who are outraged by this, we should continue to do as we do best. Pray for our oppressors. Turn the other cheek. And don't allow ourselves to be so filled with even righteous, justifiable anger, when instead what we need to focus on is excuse me, I wasn't done speaking.
Sorry.
And obviously we need to continue praying for those people who are mentally deranged enough to think that this kind of thing is funny. That concludes my thoughts on the subject.
Right. And just make sure that your tabernacles are protected, people, have security cameras at the very minimum. Anyway, Dante?
I was not paying attention. I was focusing on something else. Continue
I was
on.
just asking your
Very
final
well.
thoughts on the whole stolen tabernacle story before we move on.
It makes me unfathomably angry.
And very well. And now the next of these three different subtopics, the group Jane's Revenge, another form of irony for you, has claimed responsibility for the attack against a pregnancy center in Wisconsin. I believe that, what was it, their windows got shot out or something?
The pictures I saw, it looks like they roughed up the place.
Firebombed. They were I believe it. They threw a Molotov cocktail into the office building.
And also there was, maybe talking about different things, but there was also slang or written with graffiti, "If abortions aren't safe, neither are you," which I think it was grammatically correct. So That's something.
Well, then they're getting better at making graffiti. Then,
Yeah, it's a
like small miracles.
15 steps backwards, but 1 step forward for the street culture. But it's not the bubble letters that we are commonly associated with graffiti. So,
Well,
anyways,
the problem is it's not the street culture who's making it. It's a bunch of 40 or 50-year-old female college professors who are upset that they never had kids in their lives.
so you're saying they're infringing upon the street culture's intellectual property and should be brought in for copyright infringement.
Well, if I believed copyright was something that should be enforced like that, certainly. But
You will be brought before the tribunal for posting a meme that took a screenshot from a movie. But anyways, oh man. Anyways, we came too early for Article 40. What was it? Article 47 or something that the EU was doing. A few years too late. We started doing these a few years too late, and we weren't even around then. So time flies. So yeah, Dante.
predecessor organizations were.
YouTube was still my primary way of wasting time in the internet back then.
But yeah, there's a group of people that claimed responsibility for that attack. You know, this is giving me flashbacks to like the mid 2010s when ISIS would claim responsibility for all of those terrorist attacks, like it was something to be proud of.
Oh yeah, I was actually. Thank you for reminding me. I wanted to mention that when we first talked about putting this thing up. Yeah. I was even said it like I was surprised. Like that's what terrorists do. Like I was coming to some actual realization.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I thought of when I heard that, and I was like, why would they claim responsibility for that? Doesn't that make that literally an act of terrorism?
Yeah, and also doesn't that make it easier for the police to arrest you? I mean, you're not terrorists and it's a
charge you with
Middle Eastern
that
country.
terrorism?
Well, technically, the police are looking into the claims.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, I think it's still a crime to isn't it still a crime to isn't that like wasting police time? Like if they didn't do it and it was some other radical pro-abortionist or maybe even just some I don't know. We don't. I mean,
It doesn't
we don't
matter
know.
if they did it or didn't do it.
Yeah.
They admitted their guilt publicly, which is admissible evidence in court.
And it's also, and even if they didn't do it, can't they be charged with wasting police time because now the police have to look into it, and when they could have been, and
Yeah.
assuming they didn't do it,
that's what they got what's his face for when he faked that hate crime.
Oh,
Jussie
Smollett, Jussie Smollett or whatever.
Yes, and it's really insane how. Imagine if the roles were reversed here. Imagine if the roles were reversed and some pro-life group firebombed an abortuary office.
Oh, there would be outrage in the streets. Depending on the state, the governor would call in the National Guard. Well, I don't know, maybe not
They would make the summer of peace actually look peaceful.
the summer of love. No, yeah, no. I mean, I don't really like to play the if the rules were reversed game because we all know what would happen. Because I mean, yeah, but it's still. I don't know, and I think that speaking of not getting angry, I mean, I think I can't remember any specific examples, but I'm sure there have been times where I just think, well, if this happened, and I'm storming around my room, like going off, like I was actually recording something that was going to put on YouTube or whatever. Yeah, I mean we all know what would happen, and it's just which is actually something that can be applicable to our third main topic, but we'll save that for when we get to there. But yeah, suffice it to say, as much as I would love every single Planned Parenthood to be bulldozed and then have a bunch of priests come in and I still wouldn't firebomb one, especially during. I mean, I don't think anyone was there at the thing. I think this happened at night, right?
It was closed. It was closed for the weekend.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, but still, you don't just like attack firebomb a place. Obviously, even destroying, destruction of property aside, and the complete morals of the situation relating to the abortion debate aside, uh, even if no one's supposed to be there, you never know. They may have had a problem with their alarm system, and someone had to go up in the middle of the night there or to check it to make sure the alarm company didn't end up sending cops or whatever, because that happens all the time. I think, or at least it does with one person I know. Yeah, don't go firebombing people as a way of political protest. I mean, you're going to get
If
someone.
you're for some reason needing to set a fire, may I introduce you to a campsite with a fire pit and appropriate equipment with which to put out that fire when you are
Yes,
done enjoying it.
I mean, I don't know. Just I don't know. I just think that setting fires as a way of political protest. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it more, I mean, firstly, there's always a chance you're going to get yourself hurt, which is going to make you, which one is going to make you look bad, but also, ouch. Um, the whole abortion is healthcare. Well, you're going to need some actual healthcare if you accidentally set yourself on fire. But
Yeah, just saying, running into that Planned Parenthood, they wouldn't be able to treat you for a burn.
yeah.
And of course, we should probably mention the ectopic pregnancy thing, because I know that I believe are there states that are looking to ban abortion procedures in ectopic pregnancies? I know that it's unlikely, but
I haven't heard of any because
I literally have not heard of that at
yeah,
all.
I think that's just leftist fear mongering because
There's a lot of leftist fear mongering going around about the abortion issue right now. Like, you hear them talking about, oh, they're coming for our contraception in Louisiana, and it's like, are
not
they
yet.
though? And
I mean,
they're coming for our IUDs. Are they though?
I mean, one step at a time, people. One step at a time.
I
No,
find it hard to believe that the Democrat governor of Louisiana, despite being a pro-life and Catholic Democrat, very based man actually, I don't think he's coming after anything like that. I think he's just coming after abortion.
yeah. I mean, obviously both should be outlawed, but between the two, obviously abortion is the greater evil because it's killing people as opposed to preventing people from being born. Or, I mean, coming into existence.
I kind of hold Thomas Aquinas's view on. Obviously, he doesn't actually hold this view with regards to contraception per se, but he holds this view with the legality of allowing, shall we say, sex workers to exist.
Yeah.
They should exist in society because they're going to exist anyways. And while a society should justify its laws in terms of morality, it's probably better to have people that people can go pay instead of having a bunch of rapists running around.
I'm not sure I hold to that view, but I
But
mean,
my opinion is, if we can only ban one thing, it's better to ban abortion and allow for contraception to still exist, just to prevent more abortions from happening.
oh, of course. I mean, yeah.
I don't think that contraception is moral, not even remotely. But of the two, one
Yeah.
is obviously way more important to ban, and the other is way more important to discourage.
of course, we're not going to get into a whole abortion and contraception debate here. That is for another time and another podcast. That is not our own. If you want that discussion, you can go to any Catholic podcast out there if you want that discussion. Anyway, let us go to the final subtopic, which is the most important one. That is, the Supreme Court seems to be holding firm to their decision to overturn Roe in Dobbs. Now, we went over what that would mean last week. If you need a reminder of what that would mean, it would pretty much mean that abortion becomes a state issue, not a federal issue, unless Congress decides to pass a law
Which they
stating,
failed to do.
yes, they
They
failed.
they already failed it.
Correct.
Good job, Congress. You did the thing.
Because they already failed in passing a law that would effectively enshrine Roe as legislation.
Which is what they should have done in the first place for it, just from a legal standpoint.
Right, but because it failed, thank you, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, thank you to Joe Manchin, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski, by the way.
Yeah, she might have earned my vote for re-election.
Because they failed to do that, abortion becomes a statewide issue in all 50 states after Roe is abolished, as well as the other case, PP versus Casey.
Actually, I do have a question about that. Obviously, we don't have any constitutional scholars here, but if Congress made Roe v. Wade law, couldn't the court have just struck down the law as unconstitutional? I mean, the only hypothetical problem I could see with that is when has the Supreme Court struck down a federal law as unconstitutional in the past few decades?
So to clarify your question, you're asking if Congress made Roe v. Wade the law of the land, could the court strike that down?
Yeah,
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because then they
Yeah,
usurp the
they
power of
could.
judicial review.
They could strike that law down. I don't think they necessarily would, because right now, especially, they're taking the standpoint of, well, it's a states' rights thing. Let the states decide it. Because what we decided ourselves a long time ago was a bad idea, and it would be an extremely bad look for the court to continue infringing upon that, unless they were to specifically say that it's unconstitutional because there's a right to life guaranteed in the Constitution, which would be a different matter entirely. But I don't personally see the court making that call. Not if they tried to make that call, it would be a 5-4 decision, and there would be rioting in the streets.
Well, Dobbs is already a 5-4 decision, and there's already rioting in the streets.
Yeah. I mean,
then I guess that. Well, I mean, at that rate, they may as well have just struck down Planned Parenthood v. Casey and Roe v. Wade and said that there's a constitutional right to life and gone the whole 9 yards.
Which they really should have. 9 yards, 9 justices. I get it.
Of course.
Someone got it. Someone got it.
Yes, and I think that it should have happened anyway, that an aborted baby is offered the right to due process under the, I believe it's 14th Amendment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it is sort of just one of the ironies that a murderer gets a right to have a trial when a little child who's done nothing wrong just can be killed without any sort of legal process. I mean, yeah.
Dante, you have been very quiet. Are you still with us?
I am still with you, yes.
Okay, do you have any thoughts on this thing?
Not really, other than just that I hope that Roe v. Wade is overturned and that pro-abortion in America falls and crumbles to dust.
I mean,
That's
it'd be
really
interesting. Oh, sorry.
my only opinion.
Oh, it would be interesting to see because, like, the vast majority of Americans prior to Roe v. Wade were pro-life, and it was only once the court decided it's okay. And in order to be a good little American, we must be pro, murdering people or whatever. That the pro-abortion movement really began in earnest. So it'd be interesting to see if there was a massive counterreaction, but I doubt it. I don't know. I mean, I'd be hopeful that a lot of people just abandon the pro-choice cause because the courts say so. The court says so, but I mean, on the other hand, that would mean you have a bunch of people just going with the current opinion of the court because it's the current opinion of the court.
Yeah, which means that once the opinion of the court changes again, then suddenly it's like, oh yes, let's now take this new opinion because it's new. Don't you just love that? Oh, I hate it so much. Next topic.
Yeah, I think we're ready. Aiden, we good?
Yeah, I'm good. We
Okay.
can move on.
Are we
All
happy?
right. Yes, we are. Yes, we indeed are happy, and we are going to move on to the speech to open British Parliament. The putative Prince of Wales, Charles Mountbatten, opened Parliament on behalf of his mother, the putative Queen of Great Britain, for the first time ever, sparking all kinds of spirited debate about the future of a monarchy, etc., etc. And it is sort of, and the usual suspects are about saying, oh, when Elizabeth II dies, there should be a referendum on the monarchy. And complaining about the gold and the crown and the throne and the clothes and the everything.
Yes, everything must be ugly. Everything must be brutalist. Everything must look plain. Everything must be done as visibly cheaply as possible, even if the architecture actually costs more than building it out of stone or something nice. Everything must be ugly, so that way our subjects, the people we rule over, know there is no hope and that we are there forever, and that everything is dull and depressing, and there is nothing to aspire to. Oh, I'm sorry. I said the quiet part out loud.
Bit long-winded, but yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Just the whole crown, gold, every all expensive. Why not give the money and funnel it into our welfare state? You know. That's just why. Also, Scott, I still maintain that this current Scottish Parliament building is hideous, but that's beside the point.
This is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Are we ready to move on from this? I thought we'd get a bit more out of this
Yeah,
topic.
I thought we'd get a bit more out of it.
There's not much to say, really. I mean, the UK people are like, some of them are like, yay, we shouldn't have a queen. And I mean,
it is
I'll
weird.
save my comments about is a Protestant queen better than no queen at all, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, I guess it is a little awkward that Queen Elizabeth II, for some reason, people are talking about getting rid of the monarchy after Queen Elizabeth II, as if she is somehow representing the last vestige of an old Britannia that was around. Which, I mean, in a certain sense, she is, because the Britain she inherited was much larger than the Britain she's allegedly ruling over now, even though, as we say many times, Parliament's the one running the show. And I mean, even that Britain was much reduced from the Britain of her father, because her father was the last emperor of India. But well, technically a separate thing, but whatever. Anyways, so I mean, but in many ways, she is sort of the vestige of that. Not perfect, but at least better than what we have now, Britain, because at least that Britain was still somewhat informed by its past in a way that the current Britain really isn't. I mean, it was much more of a united kingdom, certainly. The Scottish, I think that the Scottish independence movements really only started to pick up because recently, because they felt like they were ignored by the English after World War II. But yeah, no, I mean it's just she is really looking at the coronation and looking at everything what Britain was when you visualize the Britain at that time. There was still a lot of old architecture. There was still a lot, you're imagining that Britain, that in many senses looks and feels still, Victorian and Edwardian in terms of its aesthetics. And the Britain you see now, you'll still see, the nice old architecture in London, but most of the buildings, that were built during her reign, they're hideous. Like the Shard. I mean, it's only merit, or whatever they call it, that big glass one. Its only merit is that it looks like the villain of the hideout of a Bond villain. uh, so yeah, it's like, without waffling on too much, that's it. The Britain, the external manifestations of British culture, really inform us that it's not the Britain she took control of. And in a sense, I guess you could say that it would be, at least in an ironic, or at least in a somewhat tragic sense, fitting that she would be the last British monarch for now, because in
The
a
last
way
fugitive.
the last fugitive British monarch for now, because in a way she was the one who let it happen. Because she had a Britain she inherited in, what was 53? Was that her coronation, or was it before that? Anyways, you have a Britain that was still, at least outwardly, the Tories might still have been arguably Tories, even though I think they were still basically just classical liberals. And now you have the main conservative party, the Conservatives, oddly enough, who have a official LGBTQ branch, and that all happened under her reign. So I don't want to throw her under the bus too much, because she's essentially been following the status quo. And when you're when I guess your policy on monarchs is they're fine as long as they don't do anything, it's a little hard to criticize her for not trying to break the mold there. But still, in a way, she let this happen. And I'm not saying I would have done any better. I probably would have been cowering, hoping that they didn't take away my crown and taking away all that nice pension I get. Well, not pension, but again, that nice paycheck I get. Yeah. So sorry for being tough on you, your Majesty, but she's one of our
Well,
190 She's one of our 190 avid regular listeners, despite all the criticism we've been throwing at her for 30 some odd episodes now.
well,
Sorry for waffling
Yes,
on there.
I'm sure that Her Majesty the Queen has nothing better than to listen to a Jacobite rant on about how she's a bad queen.
Surely.
Hey, who knows? We had a large uptick in Indian viewers because I guess I titled a video funny. Poor Man's Movies apparently clicked with Indians for some reason. So who knows? Maybe one of our viewers is from Buckingham Palace, or is that still a permanent residence? I don't know.
no.
You know, where
I
is she?
believe I believe that she stays mostly in Windsor Castle.
Oh. Huh, I wonder why they changed the name to Windsor. Anyways,
Even
uh,
in the,
it,
it's
is it?
sarcasm.
Yeah, I was being sarcastic. Wasn't is Whitehall
The
gone?
literal House of Windsor.
Yeah. is Whitehall gone? I
I'll be
think
right
wasn't that
back.
like this? What?
He said
I'll
he'd
be
be
right
right
back.
back.
Oh, okay. I thought I was answering my query. Yeah, like, because I think the British monarchs used to stay in Whitehall. The old English Civil War song. Though for a time we see Whitehall with cobwebs hanging on the wall instead of gold and silver brave, which formerly was wont to have. Oh man, how do I get nostalgic for a time I wasn't even whatever? Anyways, um, yeah. So, oddities aside, I've waffled on far too long in this topic, so I'll give you two a chance to waffle on this topic before we move on to our third main topic. If and you want to, I'm just offering the invitation because I think I've occupied at least 70% of the talkie.
Of course.
On this
and
episode.
just to sort of just to sort of put a, I guess, a bow on the actual topic, if you follow the Jacobite succession, their current claimant, which is Franz Duke of Bavaria, he began his reign in the mid-90s. I believe it was in 96 that his father passed. So, yeah, if we would have had the other side win, assuming ceteris paribus, we would have had a coronation in 1996, and I would have been alive for it.
Yeah. Although I do find unlikely that the same line of succession would have happened, but assuming it did, yeah, 1996 is coronation. But it is weird that King Francis, he's about the same. He's about the same age as Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth. He's a little younger, I think.
Yeah, I think about 10 years younger.
Yeah, although it's weird that Queen Elizabeth does look very, very. she looks very nice for her age. She has some or maybe that is just the flower hats that she wears. That nice, those nice dresses that she wears that look like they're all cut from the same exact cloth except in different colors. But they all look the same otherwise. I don't know. Anyways,
Very beautiful powder blue. That one is my favorite.
I like the yellow one myself. Now we've devolved into royal gossipers who just talk about the aesthetics of the thing.
It was bound to happen eventually. Anyway, shall we move on?
My favorite part is yeah. Let's just move on unless Dante has come up with some. Okay.
Nope.
So the BLM Mansion thing. Let's. Okay, so I believe the update here is that the woman admits to using BLM funds to buy herself a mansion.
Yes, which I think we already knew.
Yes, we already knew, and I believe we already covered it in a previous episode.
I don't know if we covered it in a previous
Alright,
episode.
I have returned. Sorry about that.
You are back. We moved on to the BLM Mansion thing. How she admitted was bought with donated funds, which I mean, I don't know what to.
It's not the first, and it won't be the last time the masses got scammed out of their money.
Yeah, you know what? We really should be taking this from the monarchist angle because I can't think of anything from the traditional angle that probably hasn't already been said, like hypocrisy and yada yada yada.
Absolutely. Let's take it from that sort of monarchist angle, Charles.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously this is sort of another example of privately run political organizations that aren't run by nobles. Or I mean, I guess you could say that there's the possibility for embezzlement if nobles were running a political fund, but then again, the nobles already have a state, so they don't need to buy mansions. I wonder if Joe Manchin has a mansion.
I'm not sure if there are any mansions in West Virginia.
Well, he probably at least has a townhouse. But anyways, yeah. So is a townhouse just like a really big house, or anyways? I don't know. Anyways,
we can discuss that off air.
Yeah. Take a shot for every time Charles tonight has referred to himself in the third person and said anyways. Anyways, I don't know.
Well, you want me to pass out drunk, Charles?
It's so self-aware.
I mean, here's the rule. If you acknowledge you're being a terrible on-air person, or you acknowledge your faults, that means they're less bad, and you can't be criticized for that.
No. Being self-deprecating is absolutely not a shield against critique.
Well, that was why I was saying it in a sarcastic manner. Anyways, yeah. So I mean, from a monarchist perspective, I mean, this is just another example of Republican lowercase r, obviously, organizations that think that the current system is up for their advantage. Because in a monarchy, we wouldn't need an organization like BLM because the ideal glorious Catholic monarchy would just acknowledge that BLM, along with TLM and my favorite GLM. It's the local Martian rights activist group that's centered in Rockville, New Mexico. Uh, their leaders look very strange now that I think about it. They're all sort of like pale faced.
Martian plants.
I mean, I don't know. They're all like very weird faced, and all their names begin with Z. It's just there's just something off about them. I can't tell what. Anyways, they've collected a lot of money, and reportedly they were one of the groups behind the original plan to storm Area 51 a few years back. But the mothership had to leave, according to them, so they didn't show up. But I don't know what to mean. I don't know what to think about that, but whatever. Yeah. So when I announced that we should be taking this from the monarchist perspective, I hoped I would have come up with something by now to make this more of a monarchist related thing, but it appears my stalling
Well,
efforts
of
have failed.
of course, the king has to care for his people. It is, as Charles Coulomb, who has been on this podcast before, has said on his podcast Off the Menu with Vincent Franchini and Tumbler House, that monarchy is the most personal form of government. And the king, one of his main jobs, as it were, is to care for his people and to know, in a sense, what they're going through. And if anyone is facing discrimination based off skin color or anything else that's immutable, that he should step in and put a stop to it.
Yep. And I mean, just the whole thing with how there's a racial divide. I mean, in a certain sense, there will always be a racial some sort of divide, whether it's actual, like, hostilities, or just we're us and you're not, sort of thing, even if it's not intended. Because at the end of the day, we humans do like to get into our little groups, and well, with a lot of things we can choose groups. With race, we can't. So even in countries, multi-ethnic states, there's a reason why those ethnicities don't just vanish and those ethnicities remain, even if they are both glorious Catholic cultures. And they may still not like each other, like the Hungarians and the Slovaks. South Slovakia is Slovakian, methinks. But anyways, I don't care what your ethnic map says. It says it's called South Slovakia on the Hoi 4 map, so therefore it must be Slovakian. Anyways,
Please never mention Hoi 4 in any of these podcasts ever again.
Oh yeah, I was the one who
And-
made it seem like made it sound like LARPers. But you know what? We have a right to dream.
Next time you mention a Paradox game, I'm going to start making you put a coin in the jam jar.
Well,
We're just
you know
going to
what?
start.
Through the
We're just
magic
going
of
to start a
editing,
jar. In fact, we're going to make sure that this jar is also donated to every time you say the word anyway.
Yeah,
oh,
we're
well,
gonna
this
be able
worked
to
about.
raise
This worked about. This is
thousands.
going to work about. This is going to work about as well as when we try to get me to say stop saying so much. It's going to fail miserably, and it's just something I had to work on because I'm not exactly the most glowing personality.
All of the money from the jar will be donated to charity.
Yes, because legally, Monarchist of America is not an official legal organization yet, so we can't just give the money to ourselves.
And
But any,
yeah,
moving
moving
what
on.
was I gonna say? I had a point. Anyway,
You had a point. You had a point.
okay, my
And
point.
there's a
My
coin.
point.
You,
Okay.
the
Well,
point
you know
was
what? I bought a
the
small
point.
coffee at Rite Aid. Anyway.
The point there.
Okay, my point. My point is that. Oh, yeah, yes, the racial thing. Okay, so in a certain sense, these sort of racial divisions are unfortunately going to be with us. However, in our country, it is far worse, and it never really went away. I used to say that we had the civil rights movement in the '60s, but then you think about it, and even though it wasn't uh, as bad in the decades like between the '80s and '90s and '80s, '90s, and now, I started to say anyways and at the same time. So, even though it wasn't as bad, these sort of racial topics have always been with us throughout our history because as a country, originally our main ethnic division was a bunch of white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, and I guess also some Scots and Irish and whatnot, and the Dutch, and then mostly West Africans. So the sort of racial tension has always been with us, and unfortunately, it probably will always be with us. But that doesn't mean that we can't help alleviate it. And the fact that it is a problem right now is it's disturbing. And the fact that there is racial, you know, racial violence is still disturbing, and it shouldn't happen. And a monarchy, properly understood, as Charles Coulomb has said, would try to alleviate that problem as best as he can, because the king is supposed to be above race in a certain sense, even though he may be from one faction or another. I mean, this didn't result in much, I guess, but the fact that for a while the King of England was a Stuart and was therefore Scottish, probably, and that was how the two thrones sort of became merged in the first place. The Scottish king, uh, even though he was ethnically Scottish, the Stuarts lived in London. And I don't know if that was intentional or whether or not they just lived in London because London was probably the more prosperous city and closer to events on the continent, where attention had to be diverted. But
I
I
think it
guess,
was intentional because London is basically the seat of power in Britain.
well, at any rate, the fact that there is a there was a Scotsman reigning in London, in a certain sense, I think that could have had the potential, if it was more fully exploited there, to really sort of bring the two closer together. And in a sense, the success of a pan British identity, at least for a while, was arguably the result of that. Although, once again, as Jacobite, I still think that the English and Scots should still maintain separate kingdoms, but under the same king. But anyways. All right. I've now officially been able to buy a small coffee at Starbucks, but only if I'm dropping in dollar coins. But so yeah, that's I'm gonna stop waffling on. But just suffice it to say, the BLM thing is kind of annoying. Stop embezzling funds. Embezzlement is dumb. Now, if you excuse me, I have to embezzle those recently procured MOA funds to buy me a small coffee, even though I don't drink coffee.
Is buying you a coffee charity?
I don't know.
I mean, well, actually, no, I won't make that joke. But okay, hypothetical. Okay, hypothetical. You have someone with split personality disorder that doesn't know about the other personality, and that
Are
one
you saying that you have split personality disorder and don't know about your other personality, Charles?
Look, we don't talk about Bob 3, which I've been told exists by Bob 4. But
Chuck, you need to get yourself some help, buddy.
I don't know. I don't know. Split person is, what do they call it now? I don't think they call it multiple personality disorder. They call it,
I don't know.
something else. Anyways, my hypothetical query.
That is your query. Go ahead.
My hypothetical query that I don't think this has ever happened, so it's probably one of those hypotheticals that it's not worth dwelling on. But if you had somebody who didn't know about another of the split personalities, and he was like spending time writing letters to that other personality because he thinks it was an actual different person, would that be an act of charity?
I have no idea.
Technically, I suppose.
You would have to consult a professional theologian. You would also have to consult a psychiatrist and a neurologist, I suppose, in
I
order to get
guess
to the heart of that matter. None of us are qualified
in
to
any of those
discuss
episodes.
that, so we should
Yeah.
probably move
Well,
on.
I will just say that it is interesting that we like to come up with all these. It's interesting that the theologians like St. Thomas Aquinas, at least, and St. Robert Bellarmine, or anybody, they never pondered on these weird questions, and they would always ponder on questions that actually had significance, which is probably why I am not going to be another St. Thomas Aquinas. So
Anyway,
yeah,
let us let us get back to the embezzlement, I suppose. Let's get back to like unquestionably, we believe that Black lives matter. We believe that unquestionably. However, we do not believe that what BLM, the organization, is doing is, well, necessarily good for the country. Some chapters of it, at least, they claim to be very decentralized.
I mean, I would argue spending funds. I don't know if it was specifically BLM, but I think we had the politicians donating money
I
to.
was just speaking in general. I
Well,
wasn't
yeah,
speaking.
I was just giving an example to clarify to give an example. I was giving an example to give an example. Wow, the double negatives are strong with this one. Not the double negatives.
We
The
have to add
repetition.
that to the list of things that we make you put in a coin for.
No, but we could definitely add to the bingo because I think I remember doing it before on the podcast. I think we struck bingo. Okay, everybody, you can go home. You can claim your free. You've made it to an hour and 12 minutes in prize. I don't know. So anyway, my point.
Bingo, irony, and abortions. That'll be
Yes.
the title of
Bingo,
this
irony, and
episode,
you know what?
probably.
I'm marking that down as a potential title. Okay. So my point. I think certain chapters of BLM were, or maybe it was just the politicians, but donating money to help people convicted of riots get out of jail, or pay for the legal defense or paying their bail. I think paying their bail. But why not instead spend that money on actually helping the situation? Because at a riot, I'm sure there's probably some people. I'm sure it happens all the time where the police are growing after the people who are throwing rocks and they accidentally pick out a wrong person. But riot police don't have the time nor the means to arrest everyone at a protest. Riot police are always outnumbered, at least in all the examples I can think of, right? Which is probably which is why being a riot cop is probably one of the tougher jobs on the police force, because you actually have to look intimidating. Um, Unlike your friendly neighborhood Bobby, who is supposed to look not intimidating while simultaneously, it's a difficult balance. Law enforcement is, at least from my outsider's perspective. But the riot police aren't going to have the capacity or the means or the will to arrest everybody. The riot police probably don't want to arrest everybody because paperwork, but also they really are only after the people who are doing the rioting aspects, because most people
Paperwork
at
as
a
well as
riot.
paperwork as well as political fallout.
Yeah, political. We arrested 100,000 people. The cities of New York, the New York jails are now as overpopulated as our slums. Anyway,
It wouldn't be anything new, is the problem.
oh well. At any rate, uh, my point being is that if you got arrested at a riot, there's a fair chance that you were throwing rocks or doing other riotous activities. So, better to spend that money instead as opposed to on their legal defense. Maybe spend that money on it, at the very least helping the families get through it, because there may be a chance that guy was a breadwinner for a wife and kids. So maybe spend the money helping the family get through that, or just putting that money towards general charity in general, like a local boys and girls club, or we had capstone. I'm officially done with finals for my senior year of high school. Yay! And part of that was, the exam was technically the essay, but tangentially related to the exam for religion was a capstone presentation. I did mine at my local, not technically parish, but oratory. But there were a couple of kids who did their volunteering at a inner city hockey club for the inner city kids. In order to give them something to do, and a hobby to get excited about. So that money could the BLM is spending on mansions, or maybe bailing criminals out or whatever, could be spent on that, which would actually help the quality of the black lives they claim matter. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. I mean, unless hockey is considered evil.
Hockey is considered a very, very expensive sport.
Well,
But-
yeah, but I mean, at the same
but of
time, I mean, that's
course,
part of what it's there for. I mean, I guess the charity is there to make that
And
accessible,
rinks
because
are
we all
very
know.
and rinks are very expensive to build, especially in parts of the country that don't have them. I know that your part of the country has lots of hockey rinks, considering you live in Michigan, but it is a very big and expensive endeavor to build an ice rink where there isn't one already.
Well, I was just giving that as an example. I mean, there's probably in any major city, there's probably charities out there that are supposed to help inner city kids, find something to do, or maybe crazy thought, find a Catholic soup kitchen that is assisting the people you claim are being kept in poverty by the system, and maybe
You mean
donate
like,
to.
you mean like our daily bread?
In my neck of the woods, they're called Catholic Charities.
Well,
Very creative name. Well, one of. We have other soup
yes,
kitchens, but
Catholic
that
Charities does run soup kitchens, but in
Well-
Baltimore there is an organization called Our Daily Bread that also does this sort of stuff.
well, actually, now that I think about it, our Catholic Charities, they don't do soup kitchens. They hand out dish soap and clothes, but I don't think they specifically run a soup kitchen. But we do have soup kitchens, but those are all local, and you might be able to figure out where I live. And I cut the mentions of the city where I live from the couple times of the podcast where it was before, because, anyways. So,
Shall we? I would like to mention for my, I suppose, quasi last word topic before we get into the actual last word topic, that a little bit of a news item that broke earlier today. The 16th Emir of Abu Dhabi and President of the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, has passed away at the age of 73. And that just broke earlier today. May he receive his eternal reward. And my last word topic that I'm going to be telling you guys about, sorry for essentially abusing the last word topic for this week, but it was reported in my local news earlier tonight that a newborn baby is in critical condition after his mother and his father were both shot and killed in a neighborhood in East Baltimore. Please pray for that unborn child. Sorry, please pray for that newly born child. I don't know if there are going to be any updates on this topic after we are finished recording and after this goes up on Monday. If there is an update to this, story, you can find out by going to any of the Baltimore news websites to find an update on that particular topic between when we record and when this goes out live. Now,
And
please pray for that child that is currently in critical condition at Johns Hopkins Hospital.
all right, are we ready for the outro and prayer?
I believe so.
I suppose we should plug the social medias at this point.
I mean, I guess that's technically part of the outro, but so I
Aiden,
guess
would you like to plug the social medias, or shall I?
I leave it to you.
Okay. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so on our social media platforms. Links to those are in the description below, as is a link to our Discord. If you wish to listen live to this podcast, we record Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern. And our Discord server, the linkity link to that will be in the description below. And now for the rest of the outro, we hand it over to our resident, I suppose, chaplain, Aiden Hallberg, to take it away. Aiden?
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Pater noster, qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimitimus debitoribus nostris. Et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Thank you for joining us, everyone, and have a blessed evening.